So I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries on, hey, John, we had that big National Association of Realtors lawsuit. What are the changes I need to be doing as a real estate broker in the state of Washington within the Northwest Multiple Listing System? That's what we're going to talk about. Let's jump on in.
You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
So this is an article posted by the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, and I'm sure it's from their attorney. It starts off with, you can check out, and this is in the MLS. It starts off with the background just of the lawsuit and how all of that went down. And what I wanted to get into, and I'm just going to go right to the bullet points, right? In 2019, the Northwest Multiple Listing Service eliminated the requirement that a seller offer compensation to the buyer's broker. You can put 0 for selling office commission, SOC, 0. Remember that one. At the same time, the MLS made public the amount of compensation offered to the buyer's broker to inform buyers of any such offer. All right. In 2022, so that was 2019, 5 years ago, our MLS basically said, yep, 0, you can offer that. In 2022, 2 years ago, the MLS again led the industry, providing even more transparency and flexibility, yada, yada. And these changes were decoupling broker compensation, meaning that any compensation the seller chooses to offer the buyer broker is set and paid by the seller, not the listing broker. And any compensation offered by the seller to the buyer broker is prominently stated on the first page of the purchase and sale agreement, with an opportunity for that compensation to be negotiated by the buyer and the buyer's broker. So what the Northwest Multiple Listing Service has done is they proactively looked at this lawsuit and went, all right, we're going to make that change. We're going to make that change. And we're basically, as brokers within the system, we're covered. We're covered. So all these other brokers and all these other big news outlets reporting on the industry will change. We've already been through those changes in 2019 and 2022. Guess what changed? Nothing, right? Really nothing. Because people just got used to the idea of, okay, there could be 0 offered as commission, but who's going to want to do that? You want to not sell your house, put 0 for commission on selling office commission, right? So the Northwest Multiple Listings' most recent consumer initiative was revising Washington agency law, which went into effect January 1st of 2024. So you got to fill out a buyer's broker agreement. All right. So you got to do that. When the state comes looking at your brokerage and does an audit, if that happens, when that happens, they will be looking for a buyer agreement. So that you want to get those done. The new law requires brokers to enter into a written services agreement. Yep. All service agreements must be entered into at the outset of the parties' relationship. Do it at the beginning before you make an offer. Get it done up front. So you've got this option with this National Association of Realtors proposed settlement agreement. The MLS can either opt in or opt out of participating in this settlement agreement. Our MLS will not opt in because our MLS has already been so proactive that they don't have the liability that the other MLSs do that haven't been following this protocol. So the MLS will not opt in to the National Association of Realtors proposed settlement agreement. The MLS's rules and forms, together with the revised agency law, provide for consumer-friendly broker relationships. Sellers negotiate how much to compensate the listing firm and decide whether to offer to contribute towards the buyer's broker compensation and the amount of any such offer. Buyers agree how much to pay their own brokers at the outset of their relationship and then can negotiate for the seller to help cover that cost as part of the purchase. It's all negotiated up front in that buyer's agreement, right? Okay. So the NAR's proposed settlement agreement largely duplicates the rules and practices that our MLS has already had in place for multiple years, with one notable exception. The settlement agreement eliminates compensation transparency for buyers and restrains sellers' choice by prohibiting sellers from making offers of compensation through the MLS. So if you're a brokerage and you're opting in on this, you can no longer disclose on the MLS how much the selling office commission is going to be. It's like, okay, that's going backwards. All right. What about the whole transparency thing? What happened to that? Don't worry about that. Yeah, the lawyers worked out this one. Instead, the settlement agreement allows for offers of compensation off MLS, meaning, outside of what's posted on the MLS, where that information is hard to find. Yeah, where are you going to post it? Where's it going to be set up? Where are you going to have it? Where that information is hard to find and not available to all buyers and brokers. Yeah, this is going backwards. Keep in mind, this is if you opt in. Our MLS is not opting in. That change is a step in the wrong direction, is determined detrimental to consumers and brokers alike. Our MLS strives to provide consumers, with all relevant information about a listed property to promote efficiency, yada, 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 yada. The National Association's removal of compensation transparency from the MLS pushes consumers and brokers to make secret deals off MLS. That's why our MLS is not participating. They're not opting in on this settlement, because the off MLS thing invites deceptive practices, discrimination, and unfair housing. Depriving buyers of information about the transaction risks harms buyers, especially those buyers who are already disadvantaged, including first-time home buyers and members of protected classes. All right, so this is what you've got going on. Accordingly, MLS plans to revise its forms and listing process to ensure sellers are aware of an option that currently exists already when listing a property for sale, but may not be apparent to all sellers and brokers. In some instances, a seller may be prepared to pay compensation to a buyer broker, but may not be willing to offer a specific amount of compensation when listing the seller's property for sale. The seller may instead ask that the buyer include any requested amount of compensation payable to the buyer broker in the buyer's offer. So if there's zero for commission, don't take that as the seller won't pay. You may just have to throw out there, hey, you know what? Selling office commission to be 2.5% straight. You may need to provide that. The seller can agree to that amount or negotiate just like any other term of the agreement. Here's where this all kind of just right out the window, right? People aren't offering zero for selling office commission. They're just not. It's not happening. So this whole thing about having to worry about, well, if there's zero, what am I going to do? What's the seller, maybe the seller is going to accept something. What happens there? Well, they just described what that looks like, but it's a moot point, because how many homes do you see come on the MLS where there's zero for selling office commission? Yeah, zero is the answer. I haven't seen any. Maybe you have. And if that's the case, then you can reference this and away you go. The MLS's procedures are facilitated by progressive rules and forms and give consumers more choices, not fewer, and more information, not less. A seller may choose to offer no compensation, offer a specific amount of compensation, or ask that the buyer request compensation for the buyer broker in the buyer's offer. Those are your three options. Offer zero, specific amount, hey, we're doing this, or just say, hey, how much you want to get paid? People aren't going to be making offers on properties where the commission structure is up in the air. Everybody knows that. So the reality is sellers are just going to keep on going down the same road because they want to get top dollar for their properties. And if XYZ percentage of the broker population won't show it because they don't know if they're going to get paid, then, or if they have to go through this, process where, hey, you didn't offer anything, but we'd like to work this out. It's one more thing to negotiate that I think people just aren't going to do. And sellers know that up front. So most of this has already taken place within our Northwest, I almost said Pacific Northwest Multiple Listing Service. For those of you before the MLS, the Northwest Multiple Listing, it was Pacific Northwest MLS. And then they just made it Northwest because whatever. All right. So these options all exist in the MLS's system, an open, fair, and transparent marketplace for consumers and brokers. So we've got a clarification option that's coming in mid-August on the seller, what the seller's options are. We've got a clarification of that happening in August. But everything else, I've had so many brokers ask me, what am I going to do? What do we do? Well, get the buyer to sign your buyer-broker agreement and then follow the forms, because the forms have already taken all of this into consideration. And if you have one of those sellers who's like, I don't want to offer commission, then you probably need to familiarize yourself with this. But I have not seen that to date. And I don't think it's an issue. So if you're in the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, you're not going to have to do much. So that's it for me on this one. Thanks again for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.